U.S. President Donald Trump will host leaders from 5 African nations in Washington next week to discuss commercial opportunities with them. Trump will be meeting the leaders of Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania and Senegal at the White House. Now, the Trump administration says it wants to focus on trade and investment and to drive mutual prosperity. The administration has, of course, axed swaths of U.S. foreign aid for Africa as part of a plan to curb spending, which it considers wasteful and not aligned with Trump's America First policies. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the U.S. was abandoning what he called a charity-based foreign aid model and will instead favor nations that demonstrate both the ability and willingness to help themselves. U.S. ambassadors in Africa have already shepherded about 33 agreements worth $6 billion in Trump's first 100 days. Of course, in recent years, U.S. goods exported to sub-Saharan Africa have represented less than 2% of total U.S. trade. Well, let's now delve into all of this with Ovigwe Egwegu, a policy advisor at Development Reimagined. Great to have you with us today, sir. Now, of course, one thing we've noted is that there seems to be a change in strategy from this administration in which commercial opportunities are pretty much driving the U.S. engagement with Africa. Do you agree with that? What do you expect will be the focus at this meeting with the 5 leaders?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, if we look at how the U.S. is engaging with Africa under Trump, the running narrative is there's a shift from aid to trade. But if you look more deeply, you see it's really more of the US's approach trying to reorient its economy and its own global posture for the ongoing global competition with China, with Russia. Because back in 2018, there was that national defense strategy under Trump's first term, where it clearly stated that the US is going to go into that, countering Russia and China all across the world, especially in Africa. Trump's second term is very much a continuation of that. Almost very quickly it came into office, his focus has been on ensuring critical and strategic minerals, and that has driven his agenda in the DRC, Rwanda conflict, even though the more devastating conflict on the continent is in Sudan.
Right. But you talked about that recent deal with the DRC. Is this strategy beneficial for Africa, both economically and politically, given, of course, that we've also seen him axe a large part of the U.S. foreign aid to Africa?
Well, even if we're going to go by the narrative, which is the shift from aid to trade, it still has a lot of the problems that didn't make aid work, which is ignoring local context and local needs. If you look at the DRC's deal for a peace agreement, for instance, it doesn't really address the root causes of the conflict. Even if we go to the Lobito Corridor project, for instance, which is funded by the DFI, started under Trump's first term, it's still a mine-to-port deal. Whereas in Africa, the message is very clear. We want local beneficiation, refining of critical minerals, to ensure that local economies get the most out of these critical minerals. There is no sign that the Trump administration is committed or even interested in doing such deal, because it requires a lot of work, much bigger investment, and a more long-term planning.
Yeah, and it's interesting. What particular industries, commodities, or sectors do you think this Trump administration is targeting? Which of these will be key to the discussions on the table?
Yeah, I think the priority has always been critical and strategic minerals, but for these particular countries, not all of them. I mean, a lot of them don't even have significant deposits of these critical minerals. Guinea-Bissau, not so much. Senegal has some oil and gas, which is already exploiting. Mauritania fisheries, and some natural resources, minerals as well. So it's not particularly clear how the emphasis on critical and strategic minerals really fit into to the selection of the countries that will be having this summit. But then again, there's also the issue of security. Not very long ago, the U.S. AFRICOM General Langley did say that jihadists in the Sahel are looking for a way to access the sea. Most of, in fact, all of the countries on the invite list are all coastal countries. So maybe there's also a security angle to this as well. I think it remains to be seen. We'll have to wait for the outcome of the meetings to see what exactly was discussed.
And I just want to press you on that a little bit, because you raised the question, what does Africa really get in return from this relationship? How much do you think this security feature will be part of the discussions or part of this relationship?
Yeah, I think it's going to feature a lot, because the priority areas where we've seen US really active in the African continent has been areas where there is been that nexus between security and natural resources. Again, case in point, the DRC. Now, but if we look at West Africa and all of these countries where there's a focus, except for Gabon, all the other countries are in West Africa. And the major issue there now is jihadist group and violent extremism, which, like I did say, the U.S. African leader, outgoing General Langley, did say that that's the priority for the United States. So maybe that is going to feature in this conversation. But if we're looking at a Trump that is focused on commercial deals, it's not clear what it plans to gain from that.